first-of-its-kind study. The federal government is interviewing 9 and 10-year-olds and studying how staring at a smartphone is affecting their brains. It's a $300 million study following 11,000 kids for a decade. So far, the MRIs found significant differences, like a premature thinning of the cortex. That's the outermost layer of the brain that processes information from the senses. Researchers have also found kids who spend more than 2 hours a day on screens got lower scores on thinking and language tests.
So we wanted to get a little more insight on how screens affect your child's brain development. So we're joined this morning by Mike Harlowe. He's an occupational therapist with Unity Point Health Meriter. Thank you so much for waking up with us this morning.
Oh, sure.
It's a huge topic of conversation. And, you know, the American Academy of Pediatrics just came out saying that they don't want kids under 2 using so much screen time either. What's your biggest concern looking at a study like what the government's doing, these updated recommendations? What's your biggest concern here?
Well, my biggest concern with the younger kids is, unsupported screen time. There's a big variety of apps and shows and stuff like that, and some are pretty useful and some are not. And the biggest concern is what kids are getting into on their own.
So we were talking a little bit in the break about how we can't necessarily just take these screens away from kids. That's not realistic or really useful, right?
Right. It's a part of the culture now, and
Sure.
You're going to see it in schools. You're going to see it in other kids' houses, and supporting children with using it well and using it effectively is going to be the most useful approach.
While this huge study is going on and we get kind of scientific proof, what have you been seeing anecdotally in your line of work as far as the effects that these screens can have on kids?
Well, I think that especially the games and the apps, are really centered around drawing attention, and that's their primary focus, especially in the non-academic ones. And when we're really drawing attention, we have less room to attend to other things. And they really create a quick response. So it's really exciting. It's really interesting. And that may help distract a child from being involved in dinner preparation or something like that. But it's not an active learning process. So that time spent on the app generally isn't helping learn new skills for the real world.
And that's part of the concern too with having such young children on these kind of things, right? Because that can really affect how their brain is responding to other things in the future.
Well, yeah, that's my concern. During live interaction, there's lots of back and forth, subtle communication that's happening every moment. And when you're on a screen, the interaction, even if there is interaction, is very limited and structured. You can't do something that's not really allowed on a screen, but you can do that in real life. And we learn from those things where we just don't have that chance on screens.
The study also had some implications when it comes to being addicted to these sort of devices. Is that a concern you have?
It's a concern. I mean, it's not, we don't have the answer to that yet, although just the drive for, I think, even adults to use devices is pretty clear that they really do suck your attention and your energy, and we're constantly checking in on our own devices, and I think the same thing is true for kids.
So bottom line for parents, what should they be doing, especially when they're probably getting their kids some electronics this Christmas?
I think supporting that engagement with the electronics. One of my favorite things to do with electronics is using it as a starting point. So if you're exploring a cub family, wolf family on the screen, and then that translates into play in the real world, that's a really wonderful opportunity versus using it as a break time that doesn't give you a chance to interact with your family.
And that's really hard because that's the escape for some families, right? Yeah. All right, Mike Harlowe coming to the show. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
We appreciate it. Yeah.